the whites? What do you want from white people?
One, I can't, I can't
No, you
speak.
personally, what do you want from the whites?
I don't necessarily want anything from white people entirely. I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about that at this point in my life. I think more about what I want out of life and what I want from all people, which is to heal and to be kind to each other and, you know, don't hurt themselves, as I say in my book.
And when you say you don't want anything entitled from the white, do you want a little bit from the whites? What can they do for you a little bit?
What do you mean?
How can they make you feel better?
I'm going to need you to go a little deeper.
How can they enhance your self-image?
I feel great. My self-image is fantastic. I mean, look at me.
Don't you think, or do you think, it's a little odd? Oh, I want to, let me finish this and I get back to something else.
Absolutely. Take your time.
Do you think it's odd that the black people feel that white people somehow or another make them feel a certain way, has control over them, controlling them with the system? You don't think that's odd that one human being think that another human being has control over them?
It's not one human being and another human being. It is systemic. It
and
is
what do you
not
mean
about
by
one
systemic?
individual
Give me an
person.
example of systemic.
I think a really good example of something like that is the fact that the Crown Act, do you know what the Crown Act is?
No.
So it is an act that's now being put into law in several different states. It's, you know, going state by state and being passed. It essentially says that you can't discriminate against people based on their hair type. That is a tool of white supremacy where people are actually not being hired for jobs that they're well qualified for because of their hair. For example, I have these braids in my hair. And there are a number of places in this country where people would look at me twice. I wouldn't be hired for a job. I would be out and out discriminated against, especially professionally, because of my hairstyle. And those are things that don't happen to white people and would likely never happen to white people. So that's one example, but there are many, and
white people
again,
don't
many
wear
books
their
on the
hair
subject.
all, I mean, they do nowadays, but they don't wear their hair all like that. They normally do their hair, they look professional at work. What's wrong with wanting a black employee to look professional?
I think that we can look professional with any hairstyle. I think
But
that
some of these hairstyles, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You think what now?
Oh, I was going to say, I think you can look professional with absolutely any hairstyle, and I think that professionalism is something that's made as a rule to uphold white supremacy. It's this idea of that the only thing that's professional is what white people are able to do with their hair, as opposed to what the many things that black people are able to do with ours.
But you got to admit, since they passed the Crown, I know what you're talking about now.
They've only passed in a few states, to be fair. We've got a long way to go.
So some of these women, these black women hair look a mess. They don't comb it, it's just dry stuff up there. And they don't look like they just get out of bed, they wash their face, put on clothes. But their hair look a mess. Would you want someone working for you and they coming in with dry hair, just sitting up there and they haven't touched it? If you own a business, or would you want them coming in looking professional?
I think that most black women I know who are in professional environments take great care with themselves and with their grooming.
But not the hair, though. They don't seem to do anything about their hair.
They absolutely do.
Like your hair is neat.
That's part of the issue, though, is that, you know, we're being chastised and discriminated against for the way that our hair looks as it grows out of our heads. I don't know if you've ever worked in an office with, you know, women of other backgrounds, but they come in with their hair wet, dripping wet, like they just got out of the shower.
But that wouldn't look
That's
good
not
either.
necessarily professional
Right.
either. You're right, but they're not being discriminated against when it comes time to be hired for a job. They're not being called into the office and saying, hey, you know, your hair is dripping wet. It looks like you just got out of the shower.
How do you know they're not?
Because if it were happening to them, I promise you there would be laws being passed to stop it, because that's how white supremacy works.
So if you own a business, you will be okay with your employee coming in just looking a mess in the head?
What does that mean, a mess in the head?
They comb their hair, it's dry, they didn't put oil on it or anything.
You know their hair is dry?
It look dry.
Well, I mean, no offense, Jesse, but should we be taking your hair advice? I don't know if you're so experienced in the subject, right?
What's that now?
I said, I don't know if we should be taking your advice on hair. No offense.
No, I know good. I know nice hair when I see it.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And these women used, in the good old days, when boys were boys and men were men, black women used to be, I mean, just amazing from the head to the toe, right?
Really?
Because they combed their hair, they took a bath, they dressed nice, and they presented themselves well, and as a result, they did very well in life. That's gone now. Why?
I can't. Again, you're asking me about things before I was born. I can't tell you. I wish I could.
But
I feel like
don't you
an
want
old
to go
soul,
back
but
to the good old days?
I don't know what those days were.
When black people were normal, you know, when they were not abnormal, but normal. They weren't marching and protesting, calling the white man white supremacy. They didn't believe that anyone was any better than them or less. Don't you want those kind of days back?
I can't speak to that. You know, I was born in 1990, so if
yeah,
that's
your
how you
generation's
feel,
been lied to. I totally understand it.
Our generation's been lied to about what?
About slavery, about Jim Crow, and about
what
everything.
What are some of the lies we've been told?
That white people kept you down, white people are supremacies to you, that white people made you feel a certain way, and all that kind of. That wasn't like that. They lied to you.
Wow. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Interesting. I don't know what you mean, but I'm interested in your perspective.
I want to ask you about living in the valley. It was segregated. Why would white people want to live with the blacks when the blacks are so violent and destruction? Because everywhere they go, they create a hood, a ghetto, right? And white people tend to want to have beautiful neighborhood, paint their house, and cut the grass. Why would they want to live with the blacks knowing that that's going to happen, devaluing the property and all that? Why would they want to live with the blacks knowing that that's going to happen?
Oh, I definitely can't answer that question. I can't speak for all black people, and I certainly can't speak for white people, so I'm going to have to opt out of that one.
No, but you said they were segregated in the valley, right? When you were living there. But why would they want to live in an environment where they know that the blacks are going to screw it up?
Oh, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that black people enhance almost every environment we live in because we're incredible.
They do what now?
I said I think that black people tend to enhance every environment we are existing in because we are incredible and create culture and many beautiful things by just being ourselves.
And how do you define enhance? How do you define enhance?
I think, you know, we bring ourselves, we bring our love, we bring our light the way that, you know, I think many people can and have the capacity to.
And so you don't see the mess that they bring with them, like crime, and they don't really take care of themselves, their neighborhoods very well. Do you see that happening?
I can't really speak to that. I don't know that that's something I feel necessarily comfortable to offer any sort of perspective on.
And why is that?
You know, I just don't feel comfortable doing that.
But that's what love is to be honest about it so the blacks can get better.
That's interesting.
You agree with that? That's what your book is all about. You're trying to help them, right?
That's not what my book is about. My book is about my experience navigating grief and trauma. It's a very personal memoir. It's my story. I am not an expert on anything except my journey, and that was what my book is about. That is what my book and my film, actually, which is available on YouTube. It's Don't Hurt Yourself. It's same title as the book.
But isn't the intent is to help?
The intent is to share my story, and I hope that people, one, see themselves in it, and I hope that in some way it does touch and inspire them.
Do you believe, though, that by telling them the truth of why white people don't want to be around them, maybe they would, as individuals, take a look at themselves and go, right, you're right about that. Everywhere we move, we bring a mess with us. Nobody want to be around us like that. Then it'll start getting better because they have a knowledge within themselves, the blacks, that they're wrong, and white people don't want to be around them because of that, right? When they start working on themselves, if you told them the truth about it, that it's them and not the whites.
I don't agree with that. But again, you know, this is your show and that's your perspective. But I.
And why don't you agree with that?
There's a few different things in there that just don't resonate with me and how I feel, but ultimately,
like what, for an example?
That's not what like my book is about. So I'm not going to offer any sort of expertise or opinion on that. I think
but you
that's how
lived through all this. You know about this.
I don't. Again, I've lived through grief. I've lived through trauma. I've had issues with addiction. I've lived through a number of things.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, but let me ask
really
this.
About that.
Let me ask this one other thing you said. You said that you've mentioned black and brown. Are you referring to the Mexicans?
I am referring to people who have brown skin, who don't identify as black, which is a very wide range of people.
Did you know that Mexicans don't like blacks? They don't want to be around them either.
Really? Where does it say that?
Everywhere. I interviewed them over in South Central Los Angeles. There's a battle going on between the blacks and the Mexicans. because the Mexicans say that the blacks are too violent. They complain, they mess up the hood.
Oh, wow.
And so why do the blacks involve, when they're talking about the black issue, they always say black and brown, black and brown. When the Mexicans are like, oh, don't put us in there. Most people don't like black people now because they're always complaining and so violent.
You've interviewed have you interviewed most people?
A lot.
You've interviewed a lot of people? What's your focus group like? What are the numbers?
Of all races, and they all say the same thing.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
You don't see that blacks and Mexicans don't like each other?
I definitely would not say that. Again, I haven't done the extensive interviewing and research that you have, so I can't really speak to that.
Really? So you don't see it or anything? Do you have to be an expert to see reality?